Of the clock, I shall call this meeting of the Council of the Town of Fort Frances to order. We'll begin with a territorial acknowledgement that we respect and truly acknowledge that we are on Treaty 3 territory, traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. We also recognize our local Métis Nation that shares the spiritual history of this land. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest, and if so, state the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move to item 4, which is delegations and deputations. And I believe we have Jordan de Gagne here. Come on up, Jordan. Jordan is going to be presenting on an expression of interest in Seven Oaks for a proposed splash zone on Rainy Lake, which is an inflatable water park. Are you all set to go?
Yes, thank you.
Well, welcome, and take it away.
Perfect. Do we have someone, I know you were presenting for me? Okay. Just so everybody can kind of see what's going on. I did want to somewhat skip, I mean, it's a 13, 14-page presentation. I have 10 minutes. But I did want everybody to have all the information readily available, kind of see what's going on. So we'll touch starting on page 4 if possible. Perfect. So down to page 4, we'll start with the benefits to the town of Fort Frances, obviously. Won't be able to read much up there, but I will kind of go through everything. You know, Splash Zone Rainy Lake, that's what we're going to be calling the place, will represent quality time for everyone from tourism, locals, everybody around here, from corporate events, birthday parties, anything anybody can think of. It's a place for, you know, family, everybody to go, get some exercise, some quality time together. It's also going to bring a ton of tourism, keep the people here, spend more money, obviously, at our local shops, restaurants, everything like that. We're looking to have about a 2-month operating time from the end of June till late August. I mean, it's going to be talked about, admired from everybody coming through, doing the group bookings. It's really a great location. When you look at where we're really proposing this location, Seven Oaks area, main entrance and exit to Fort Frances coming over that overpass there is going to be seen by everybody. And anybody with kids is going to be tugging, you know, on the parents, asking them to stop in. So I think it's going to be really great for the community to have something like this for the kids, you know, keep them off the streets a little more and promote a little more activity. On the next slide, again, some of the activities, physical fitness. A lot of the times people have healthcare plans, benefits, right? A lot of this stuff is able to be paid for by your plans, which, you know, cover these health costs to keep everybody fit, in shape. I think it's going to be utilized very, very well. Not to mention it's easily expandable, these things, right? We can put it in within 3 days. As time goes on, people want different things added into it. We can definitely increase the capacity. Right now, we're proposing the initial size to be 100 foot by 120 foot, just about 25 meters offshore from the Seven Oaks area there. It's right in the bay. You know, there's no current in that area. Currently discussing with M&R as well as a few other organizations just to make sure everything's good to put it in that location, but everything's looking positive right now. The main, I guess, main area concern is getting the right water depth for these type of units. We're going to need about a 5 to 10 foot water depth, especially for the jump off side, right? There's a big, huge water slide, jump off zone there. So you do need 10 feet. And looking around the area, especially on the point side and everywhere else through town, it's not that easy to find 10 feet depths of water. Did pull up the charts there, obviously outside of Seven Oaks, again, about 30 meters off. It's at that depth that we need, so it's the perfect location. Next slide, please. This is the page 6, the request, looking for a commercial agreement with the town of Fort Frances, basically for the land use. Not going to be looking to put any permanent structures there, missions table, stuff like that. The one bigger item is a 20-foot sea can. It requires about 300 life jackets just to make sure everybody's safe out there. That being said, I do have another proposed location there. It's where the old kind of pier is, if possible. Good loading zone, out of the way, not interrupting any of the land, any of the grass, or any of the nice scenery we have in town right now. Some of the stuff we'll be providing, obviously, it's almost zero cost, if not zero cost, to the town of Fort Frances. Be doing the install, the removals annually, installing any temporary structures, looking at a dock system that lifts out of the water. We're going to be giving the staffing a $2 million liability insurances, cleaning up the shoreline, making sure we keep this this beautiful town looking beautiful, and so people come in and see how nice it is, not there's garbage over the shoreline or whatever from previous goers. Obviously marketing, promotions, really pushing the town of Fort Frances on a lot of this as well to bring more tourism here for our summer seasons, fall seasons, fishing, hunting, everything else we have to offer here. It will be, really the plan is to open before July 1st so we can have a great send-off if possible. I think as long as everything goes well here, that's more than likely. The plan would really be to install it about mid-June, June 18th or so. And open 7 days a week, holidays, everything. Again, a place for family to go. On page 7, we did have the tickets, including the intro training. Make sure everybody is knowing how to use the facility, what to do, what not to do. We're also going to have the life jacket fitting, obviously the passes, discounts available for evenings, groups. Going to try and do community days, make sure everybody around the Rainy River District has a good chance and a good price to come here. Holiday discounts as well. It's allocated for ages 5 and up. Anyone 5 to 8 would require an adult, though, to supervise them. And again, with the adult pass, we'd be giving discounts to them as well. Want to make it affordable for the families and everybody that that has this, with different options of passes from 1 hour, 2 hour, day pass, week pass, and a season pass as well. 100-person capacity on it. So we're on page 8 now. Again, this one really, the main thing is safety. Safety number one. We're going to have some lifeguards on duty all the time there. 2, one on shore, one on the unit. There's actually an inflatable lifeguard tower that goes out with it, so they've got good visibility of everybody. Again, we want to keep it safe. Another lifeguard on the shoreline. Have our safety training. I've got a program set up with that, with the life vessel, spine board available, everything that's really needed to make sure everybody out there not only has fun but is safe. And then I did move back to page 11. Again, a lot of this other stuff is about the Weebit brand and how, this is a trusted brand to over, I think it was 40 million users worldwide. They're in 90 countries. It's a great system, honestly, and safe. That's the main thing. So why are we proposing to do this in Fort Frances? Personally, I'm from Fort Frances, born and raised. There's, growing up here, honestly, not a whole lot to do. As a kid, I'm glad we have the skate park now, since, well, that came when I was a little younger, but Aside from that, it's really go swim, go bike around town, go maybe get into trouble. So trying to reduce that a little bit, give the kids a place to go during the day, during the evenings, to really have fun. Also, this location, again, it's a beautiful treed shoreline, great visibility from the street, like I mentioned earlier, large area for sitting. May want to get maybe a few more picnic tables out there just to increase that sitting area. Shade, I know sitting at the point side, it is sunny, hot all the time. So this area would really give a place to go for the younger kids, the parents bringing, all ages there and be able to sit and kind of enjoy themselves while watching them. On to page 12. This should be my last little bit of the presentation. Again, it's going to be privately funded, near zero cost to the town of Fort Francis. The system's ISO certified. We're going to be marketing to Northwest Ontario, the U.S., any of the states you see. Basically, you see a license plate from any of those states. We're putting advertisements there to bring tourism to Fort Francis. Again, that Weebit brand, world-class, 90-plus countries now, 40 million people enjoying it, and as well bring more tourism to Fort Francis, trying to market with the resorts around the area as well to get some of the people in on the evenings, on their time off from fishing, to come and enjoy it and enjoy the town. There is some more material in here. Just again, this is kind of a bit of a early shot of what some of it would look like. Again, that's maybe a quarter of it, if that. There are a couple more slides, but I think I'm pretty good with that. Probably getting close to time.
Well done. You're right on time.
See?
And I do want to thank you, Jordan. That was an excellent presentation. And in particular, the written presentation that you provided all of us was excellent, first class. So I'm going to go to council to see if council has any questions or comments. I'm seeing Councillor McTaggart already.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Jordan, I applaud you on your entrepreneurship. I'm excited by this. I think it's a wonderful addition. It would be a wonderful addition to the community. My understanding, it's going to be sort of back in the bay?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe something council may need to think about, because that's typically where the fireworks go from. And
it is near the bay.
Yeah.
I wasn't certain about that.
And I just wonder if we might give that some consideration. So thank you.
Yeah, when we're done the questions, I'm going to put a resolution on the floor requesting that administration bring back a report to council and look into those things.
And if that is, if that is the case, we can always look at putting it up July 2nd.
Councilors, further questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Brunetta.
Thanks, Jordan, for your presentation. This is very exciting, I agree. And you did give your rationale for why you wanted it at that specific location. Primarily visibility is one of the things, I think. I think it would also be very nice out at the Point Park area, a little easier water access. I find the water access at Seven Oaks is very, sometimes we have very high water, sometimes we have low water. So I think it's a little more tenuous on that side of the river. I'm glad to hear you're talking to the MNR as well. I've heard rumors, I don't know if it's true, but that there's still some logs, in the bottom of the water. Yeah. So those things might concern me. So I don't know what you would do in terms of just scoping out the bottom of the water to see what could be an impediment.
So we do have a plan for a scuba diving crew just to come in, make sure everything is good, and then start laying the foundations in there, the anchors and everything.
Thank you, Councilor Brunetta. Councilors, any further questions or comments? So, Jordan, just so you know, we never make a decision the same night. So what I'm going to do now is going to put a resolution on the floor, an oral resolution requesting our administration to bring back a report to council investigating and looking into these various things.
Absolutely.
But I do want to thank you very, very much for a very interesting and delightful presentation. And, you're very welcome to stay for the entire council meeting if you like.
I got a kids hockey game at 6:30, so I'm kind of pushing it, but
Just so you know that you would have been welcome.
do
But
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thanks very much.
thank you.
So I'm going to put an oral resolution on the floor where we request administration to bring back a report to a future meeting of council. And I need a mover and seconder for that. Councilor Bernetta moves, Councilor Olson seconds. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Okay. Moving on to item 4.2, I believe that we have the Fort Francis Lakers, and I believe they're going to do their presentation virtually. There's Luke. So we have Luke, Tyler, and is Tara with you? Yes?
I'm here, yes.
Just before we begin, we have a lengthy agenda tonight. Later on, I'll be doing my report, and in my report, I'll be saying some nice things about the Lakers. But if you're not here for that, maybe I'll just say them now. I do want to commend the Lakers on their continued community involvement. I had the absolute pleasure of attending the Lakers Night Out hockey game some time ago, and that was just an amazing event. So I congratulate you and thank you for putting on events such as that. So I don't know who's going to kick off the presentation. Who's going first? Tara, go ahead.
Thanks for the compliment, Your Worship. That's very nice of you. I will say that the team was absolutely jazzed to have the mayor at the game. So it was something they were pretty excited about. So thank you for attending and supporting us. I'm going to keep my portion pretty brief, and then I'm going to hand it over to Luke and Tyler. What we've come for today, it's not really a big ask. In talking with Nathan, we understand prior to the new recreation master plan, there's going to be a new facility rental policy that's being updated. So if you look at just page 1 of we just provided some written documentation. Really just what we're asking is a blank slate going forward when allocating dressing room and rental space. I was not there 20 years ago when the Lakers organization first started. But from what I gather, it just seems like maybe they were the last to the table and they ended up in a cupboard under the stairs that really doesn't suit the team's needs. So going forward, all we're asking is when administration updates the policy, maybe instead of, looking back at, oh, this is how it's always been done, this is how the space has always been used, just maybe more consideration for, ice time use, how the room's being used, the size of the program, potential growth, factors like that. We have secured a donor to renovate a dressing room space if one does become available. And we're hoping if that can be done this summer, we can really turn it into a showpiece. And that's about it from my end. It's really just consideration when updating the policy, and I'll turn it over to Luke and Tyler if they want to provide any more information.
Thank you, Tara. Luke, are you up next?
Yes, thanks for having us again. I guess first of all, appreciate all your guys' support in what we've done so far. The Beer Gardens has been a success so far in 2 games. It's going to be on again for our playoff games Wednesday and Thursday. But Tara hit the nail on the head. I think people around town see what we're trying to build, not just on the ice, but in the community. We're involved with schools. I have a list here of 40 or 50 organizations and businesses we've worked with just since April of last year, just trying to grow our brand, community outreach, work with youth. I think people that have attended our games see the product we're trying to put on the ice. Obviously, we have a ways to go still, but people like me and Tyler, the rest of the coaching staff, the board we have now, we're working hard to do it the right way, treat players the right way, involve organizations and businesses to promote their needs too. And I think it's come a long way, but in discussing plans for the future, we think that's the next step. I'm sure everyone's not versed on junior hockey, and it's a good thing. Players have a lot of control over where they go and the organizations, the teams that they go to. So things that we've done in the community, the social media that Tara does, the events we've done, they all go a long way. But in talking with people around the community, players that we're trying to recruit, our coaching staff, our sponsors, we think having a more fitting dressing room area would go a long way to, continue down the path that we're going to have a competitive product, to maybe get some provincial and national significance for our program. I mean, the Centennial Cup, as far away as we were last year, it's definitely in reach for a town like Fort Frances. The facility we have, the coaching staff we have in place, the players we're bringing in, it's a logical next step for us. Like Tara said, we do have a sponsor secured to take care of that. But we're just hoping that, like Tara said, that council will consider some of the things that she talked about as far as ice time, utilization. We've had upwards of 26 players this year and 5-6 coaching staff. And we don't have a whole lot of space for what our program is and what we're trying to build it into. So utilization, the age of the players, what they're doing in the community, we hope it's considered, and we'd appreciate if some feedback on that next week when you get your report.
Yeah, just to go off a Luke there. Myself, I've been a rink rat here at the arena. My name's in the concrete under the ice surface. I just loved when IFK came into here, and I think the Lakers, we were kind of last to the straw in what's available. And just throughout our program here in the rink, I see how things are used every day with certain users and what they're doing. Are they really using the space, or has it just been that way since the arena was built? There's no change, nothing happening, and that's basically why we're here, is for a request to see some change and some space available for us, and to get in that direction. One day, actually, in the SIJHL, our arena is able to host the Centennial Cup. Just with the size of it, I know we've hosted in the Dudley Cup, and that brings in a lot of people, a lot of fans anytime we have these events. And just, it helps with recruiting, but it also just grows our minor hockey program with the space available here and what the Lakers are doing and the dreams of those young kids. And really it comes down to a dressing room sometimes, like Luke shared. But yeah, just a fair look at how the space is being used inside the arena and what groups are using it, who's here every day, who's not, things like that is what we're looking for. So just appreciate your time, and looking forward to some answers and some clarity on how space is going to be used throughout the facility.
Thank you, Tyler. I'll go to council now and see if they have any questions or comments. Councilors, any questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. My comment is that I thank you very, very much for your presentation. It was very professional and very persuasive. As you know, we don't make a decision the same night that there is a presentation, but I am going to put a resolution on the floor requesting that administration bring back a report to council, and once we get that report, administration will be in touch with you. So thank you very much, and I'll put this resolution on the floor that we request administration to bring back a report to council on this issue. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Mackey is moving. Councillor McTaggart is seconding. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimous. That's carried. So thanks very much, Lakers. Again, you're welcome to watch us for the rest of the evening on video as well, but you don't have to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Okay. Moving right along, it's very nice to have people here this evening. Item 5.1 under presentations. And this is kind of exciting because it's the very first presentation under our new bylaw. So the Sister Betty Kennedy Advisory Committee is the first committee to report to us under this bylaw. So we have the annual presentation in accordance with the committee bylaw 90-23, and I believe Debbie is going to come and speak to us. Come on up, Deb.
Okay, Mr. Avis.
Good one. Somehow I knew that was coming too.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and administration staff. First of all, I'd like to thank my committee for coming to support me and the two councilors that are on it. It was great for everybody to come out. On behalf of the Sister Kennedy Advisory Committee, Fort Frances Senior Center for Adults 55 and over, I am pleased to update you about the happenings at the center from March 1st, 2023 to now. I want to emphasize that the Senior Center is kept running by our volunteers. 10 regular volunteers work from 8 to 12. There's 5 of them that work every day, and there's another 5 that work 11:30 to 4, 5 days a week. Then we also have extra help during the lunchtime, especially during the special meals. We also have 12 more volunteers who cover when the regular ones are not available. We have 1 volunteer that comes in once a week and makes the homemade soup. The committee had a presentation from the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility, who attended our June 2023 meeting to describe grants and programs offered by the ministry. The representative was very impressed with the center and the way that it was being run. The following groups have given presentations and are offered services to seniors. The Family Health Team on mental health, dietitian on health and eating for seniors over 55, OPP on senior use, belly diabetes, lawyers speaking about wills and power of attorney. The BON, this program targeted fall prevention, and after the presentation, 2 exercise classes were added. The fire department talking about fire safety for seniors over 55. Westway, we have had 14 active living fairs. We have had karaoke nights, dances, craft sale, summer games, corn shows, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day celebrations, along with our volunteer lunches. And this is all done through volunteers. A facial makeover for seniors was done in March. We continually offer the following exercise classes for seniors 55 and over. 2 yoga classes per week, 4 Tai Chi classes per week, fifth class once a week, the BON, 2 classes once a week, cardio drumming, 2 classes once a week, and also our line dancing that is twice a week. Hard to play 5 days a week in the afternoon, bingo once a week run by the Kiwanis Club, and we also have a craft group that comes once a week. The following groups have had their meetings at Senior 55 Plus Center: retired teachers, Mill alumni, horticultural group, hospital auxiliary, and the church group. The workshop is used on a daily basis, and in the evenings, women come out and volunteers work with them on the equipment. I found out today that sometimes women come out during the day too. The celebration of the opening of the edition was extremely successful. As our population ages, we have a full multi-use facility that is well positioned for the future of Fort Frances and the area. We continue to offer a taxi service to the center, library, and museum for the shut-in seniors 55 and over. Our hot lunches have gone over very well, and we will be offering them once a week. The regulars.
Excuse me for a moment, Deb. I think we have a technical difficulty here. We Yes. Sometimes rule is best. Sorry about that, Deb. Didn't mean to interrupt your flow. You were really moving along there quite nicely.
We will count that against you at
Okay. Okay, currently we are working on getting lines painted in the parking lot and getting 2 spots for handicap. At this time, we have an average of 2 rentals a month, and we are trying to increase that for additional revenue. We'd like to offer crafts along with pool lessons in our new billiard rooms and get puzzles going on the extra tables that are in the room so anybody can come in and work on a puzzle. The card room is not utilized in the morning, and we would like to get more seniors 55 plus to use it during this time. June is senior month, and there are various activities planned for the month. We will be asking the town to declare June as senior month. We have partnered with the Chamber of Commerce, 3 of our committee members, and 4 other seniors over 55 to help run these events in June. Donation cans have been placed out, and a donation wording poster will be posted around the 55 plus senior center to increase our revenue. In September 2023, there was a change from a board of managers to advisory committee. We have been working with this change and will have some proposed changes to wording and intention coming forward. We are continually promoting the senior center as a 55 plus and an active place to be with seniors in our community. Once again, thank you for all the help the town has given us, and hopefully you'll continue to help us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and thank you to the entire committee for coming this evening. I'll go to councilors for questions or comments. Councilors, any questions or comments? I have a few comments. First of all, you talked about volunteers, Debbie, and you're right. Volunteers are the backbone of our community, and I really salute you and the volunteers on the Sister Betty Kennedy Advisory Committee. Thank you for all of the work that you do, and thank you to the volunteers at the center itself. I love the picture of the center that you described. It's really a happening place, and it's amazing how many things are going on over there. I've served on the committee in the past, but this particular committee seems to be very, very active. So I salute you for that. I think that the work that you're doing is amazing, and it's really essential for our town. We have an aging demographic in Fort Francis, and so we really do need to provide services for our seniors, and you're doing an amazing job doing that. I mean, after all, it is the seniors who built this community. So thank you very, very much. And you too are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Okay, moving on to correspondence. 6.1 is correspondence from the city of Cambridge. It was placed on there by Councillor McTaggart. Would you like to speak to this, Councillor McTaggart?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, tonight I'm asking for council support of this motion that was authored by the city of Cambridge. I've reported to this council a number of times on behalf of the Police Service Board about the rising calls for police services by the OPP in the community. And these calls for service affect each of us as taxpayers. Some calls for service for the OPP are generated by repeat offenders who are released by the court system only to reoffend. There is only so much that we can ask the police to do, and we need a willing partner in the judicial system, and that's what this motion strives to address. I ask the council direct administration to bring back to our next meeting a resolution supporting the motion from Cambridge.
Thank you, Councillor McTaggart. Any questions or comments on this? Then I'll reiterate Councillor McTaggart's motion that we request that administration bring back a resolution in support of this motion. Could I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor McTaggart. Any discussion on this? All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Moving on to item 6.2, which is a really important one, and I think an important one for our community. It deals with volunteer firefighters, and we'll go right back to Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship. In November, the municipality of Wawa passed a resolution calling on the federal government to increase the tax credit for volunteer firefighters from $3,000 to $10,000 per year. We have heard from administration about the difficulty in attracting volunteer or part-time firefighters locally. In order to fulfill the position of a volunteer firefighter, one needs to make a significant commitment of time for the new training requirements that are being called for firefighters. The firefighters also, at a moment's notice, need to be available to attend fires. So there's a real commitment. I think a benefit of this type might help us in the recruitment for our fire department. And again, I ask council to direct administration to bring to our next meeting a resolution supporting the motion from Wawa.
Thank you, Councillor McTaggart, and I'll put that oral resolution on the floor that we request that administration bring back a resolution supporting the Wawa resolution. Could I get a mover and second for that? Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Olson. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried and no one is opposed. Moving to item 6.3, this is a request from the Sister Kennedy Center. I'll just mention that in the past, this is one that we have frequently granted, but as with all financial requests, we really require a resolution. So I'm going to, with council's permission, put an oral resolution on the floor requesting that administration bring back a resolution on this request. Council okay with that? Okay, so a mover and seconder for that resolution, Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Behan. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, then we'll call the question. And that all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Bernetta and Behan. Item 6.4 is a very interesting report from the Northwestern Health Unit. And I just want to take a moment to salute the Northwestern Health Unit for all of the work that they do in our community to keep us safe. This report being one of the ways that they do it. And the report is available in the council agenda. And it's fairly concerning about the availability of alcohol in Ontario. So I encourage people to read this. And again, I thank the Northwestern Health Unit for always looking out for the health and well-being of the people it serves. Anybody want to comment on this one? Okay. Item 6.5. This is a request from the RRDMA, and I think Councillor Behan is intimately involved with this, so I don't like to railroad anybody, but I'm suggesting he might be a good person to put on this committee. Does anybody want to speak to this? Councillor Behan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to give some little bit of background. This stems from some concerns with RRDMA. I mean, obviously, healthcare is very important to residents right across the district, and obviously, the residents in the west end of the district are concerned about the future of the Rain River Health Center. Others in the central portion are worried about the future of the EMA Health Center. So the RRDMA had put out several requests to Riverside to come to our AGM to speak about healthcare matters and these things, and they've always turned us down. So in an effort to improve dialogue and to improve the relationship between the RRDMA and Riverside, RRDMA President Doug Hartnell and myself as Vice President and Secretary Treasurer Peggy Johnson met twice with Riverside senior administration, including CEO Henry Gauthier, and also some of their board members to figure out ways we can do this. And the solution that Riverside came up with, or a suggestion that Riverside came up with, was to meet in smaller groups, as was outlined in the letter. So it'd be a West District Committee in those communities out there, a Central District Committee surrounding the Emo area, and also then an East District Committee, which would involve Fort Frances and Alberton. And I was certainly interested in being on that committee, but I wasn't sure if it needed council approval or not. I always thought it was maybe a RDMA subcommittee. So I did discuss it with Mayor Halakis, and I was going to put my name forward anyway, but then I saw it was on the council agenda anyway. So I just want to say I'm willing to put my name forward as the representative on that committee. I think it's important that we can bring our concerns or issues of the town to Riverside, as well as report back to council on any needs or information Riverside wants to pass along. Now, it's a new thing. I'm not sure of the frequency of the meeting and how it's all going to work out, but we're going to try it. But as I said, I'm willing to be the representative on this committee if it's the will of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behan. Councillor Bernetta.
I definitely would support Councillor Behan being on this committee. You may recall approximately 6 months, maybe 3 months ago, we did host the general meeting for the RDMA in our council chambers. And I attended because there was a concern that some of the board, the members of the RDMA executive were considering withdrawing their funding for physician recruitment. And the primary reason for that was due to a lack of communication from Riverside. So when I attended the meeting, I explained that they're two very different bodies, and luckily garnered the support of RDMA to continue sending their financial support for physician recruitment. So I think this is a really, really important thing to have that municipal a hospital connection to really talk about services. There's always concern that the smaller facilities like Rainy River or Emo might close or reduce services. So I think it's great that the hospital is putting that forward as a resolution, and I really hope that it's successful. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Then I checked with the clerk if we could appoint tonight, and she says that we can, so I'll put a resolution on the floor that we appoint Councillor Behan to serve on this Riverside Committee representing our part of the district, representing Fort Francis. Could I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? Seeing none? Calling the question, all in favor? And that's carried, and I see no one is opposed. Okay, and then the last one of the sixes, item 6.6. This is correspondence from the Fort Francis High School chem-free grad, and it's their annual request for a donation to cover the cost of the rental fees for the arena. And again, this is something that we have supported in the past, but as with all financial requests, we require a resolution. So I'm going to put an oral resolution on the floor requesting administration to bring back a resolution on this issue. So can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Behan, Councillor Olson. Any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? That's carried, and no one is opposed. Okay. All right, that brings us to 7.1, which are council reports. Mine is gargantuan, and I've been given strict instructions by Councillor Mackey to make the Reader's Digest version of my report. I'll do my best. So on February 22nd, Councillor Behan and myself and CAO Rob attended a presentation on human trafficking, which was held at the Memorial Arena. It was a lengthy meeting from 4 to 8. February 22nd happened to be Human Traffic Awareness Day, and it's been observed as such since 2021. The event had several community sponsors. I wanted to put this on here because, as was made apparent at the meeting, there is human trafficking within the town of Fort Francis. For those of you who are interested in more information, the United Native Friendship Center has put out a couple of videos on human trafficking that you can find on YouTube. And just a little bit of an update. Just today, myself and council got invitations to attend a meeting dealing with the formation of a human trafficking coalition taking place later on in April. I've been in discussions with a magazine, a virtual magazine called Business View Magazine. Business View Magazine is interested in doing an article on Fort Frances. They tell me that they only do positive articles, so they want to talk about us and put some pictures, and I think it's a really good opportunity to showcase Fort Frances. I've met with them virtually a couple of times, and then recently CAO Rob and I were interviewed by them. So that's in the works, and I hope everybody watches for the article. I certainly will. I looked at some of their articles. The name of the magazine is Business View Magazine. You can find it online just to see what they did with other communities. I spent 10 years working in Amherstburg, Ontario, and they had done a session on Amherstburg, and I was very impressed with what they did there. So I'm hoping they can do the same for us. I think it's worth noting, I had a virtual meeting with the staff of Marcus Pulowski because the office in Fort Frances now is not currently staffed, which is a concern. When it was staffed, we had easy access to Marcus when we had issues. So I met with Marcus Pulowski's chief of staff just to get the names of who we should contact if and when we want to contact our MP. On February 22nd, there was an air service focus group. As everybody is aware, Bearskin has pulled out of our airport, and that's a real concern to us. So a focus group was held to gather information regarding the municipal airport. And the purpose of this was to gather information from various stakeholders, people that use the airport, to get information that would be helpful to a new carrier. The meeting was organized and chaired by our interim CAO. Our economic development officer was there. Our airport manager was there. And I do want to comment or commend all of them for the work that they did. Our airport manager is very, very knowledgeable. And many thanks to our CAO who is putting in countless hours on this file. The meeting was well attended by stakeholders. And I do want to add that recently CAO Rob has just gotten together a very nice package that's going out requesting expressions of interest for companies that may want to fly into our community on a regular basis. So that's encouraging. Attended another meeting with Marcus Pulowski's chief of staff. This is a concern to me, and it should be a concern to everyone in Fort Frances and our district. It's an economic concern. What's happening, and this is part of the free trade agreement, which is federal, and so really it has nothing to do with municipalities other than it affects us economically. And what's happening is that American fishers who stay on the American side can be guided into Canada by American guides and fish in Canadian waters. And they don't spend any money in Canada. They catch Canadian fish and then they go back to the American side. And so this is a real concern to our guides and to our tourist camp operators who see that their business is declining, and in some cases declining greatly. It's also a concern to local First Nations. And then I got a call from a camp owner recently, and I found out also that the same thing is happening with ice fishing, that American fishers who are staying in American resorts on the American side can come into Canada guided by American guides and ice fish in Canada as well. Now, the interesting thing I found in researching this a bit is that there was supposed to be a reciprocal agreement where if American guides can guide Americans into Canadian waters, that Canadian guides were supposed to be able to guide Canadians into American waters. But in speaking to some of the Canadian guides, they find when they go to American Customs to request this reciprocity, they're denied. So there's a real kind of one-sided give and take there, which just is patently unfair. So this is something that you'll hear more of. I intend to bring a resolution to council at a future meeting asking this issue to be put on the RRDMA agenda and trying to get then it to go from there to normal so that we can get the weight of the province, I hope, behind this, and maybe the province can talk to the feds. Because I know in the last term of council, letters were written, but they were in vain. Individual letters didn't seem to have a lot of effect. Some of these activities that I've been involved in are a real joy to take part in. One was the opening ceremonies for the Northern Ontario Provincial Curling Champions. That was a real pleasure. We hosted here the Northern Ontario Curling Association Provincial Curling Club Champions, so I was invited to bring greetings from the town of Fort Frances and council and administration, and I certainly willingly did that. That's a very important competition because the winners represent Northern Ontario at the national level in Barrie in November. And as it turns out, our women's rink, the Kim Beaudry rink, won, and so they're going to be representing us in Barrie at the national championship. So congratulations go out to the Kim Beaudry rink. I mentioned this earlier on March 1st. The Fort Frances Lakers really do go out of their way to be involved in the community. And on March 1st, they held the Fort Frances Lakers Night Out. They held the Pride Night. And it was an excellent hockey game. It went into overtime. Really enjoyed the game. Unfortunately, the Lakers lost. Following the game, they had the Pride Drag event, which was really well attended. I think Chelsea was there. And it really provided a safe space and a warm and inviting atmosphere for members of our local 2S LGBTIA plus community. So I do want to give a shout out to Borderland Pride for organizing that event and for their advocacy, their continued advocacy on behalf of minority community members. My wife and I, we had a great time. It was a really good evening. Another excellent and delightful event on March 2nd was Snowasis. Many thanks to the Fort Frances Museum and Cultural Center and the Friends of the Museum for putting on. It was the 11th annual Snowasis. And in coming to attend the Snowasis, I came from the West End. We had a brand new $1 million fire truck there, and they had the ladder up as high as it would go, and I could see it from the West End of town, and it really was an attraction. That was one of the highlights for me. And the emergency crews, not only for the firefighters, but for police and ambulance, were there. And they were visiting with a lot of the young children and allowing the young children to, sit in the cars or sit in the fire truck. That was a real hit. As well, the whole square was buzzing with excitement. There were free hot dogs. Thank you to the Kiwanis Club. And they had an amazing inflatable polar bear with which I had my picture taken. And bannock on a stick was available. You could cook your own bannock, and there was some absolutely amazing cedar tea. Inside the museum were cookies and hot chocolate. There were also events later in the day at the library and also at the Sportsplex. On a more serious note, we have a homelessness problem in Fort Frances, as well as a human trafficking problem, as well as an addictions and mental health problem. So the Homelessness Committee met at the United Native Friendship Center. A detailed report was given on the Out of the Cold shelter for this year, or for 2023, sorry. The shelter was open in 2023, 174 nights. They hosted 61 guests. 2/3 of the guests were identified as male. The ages of those using the shelter ranged from 18 to over 60. 71% of the guests were Indigenous. The average guest visited 12 times. 40% of the guests were repeat guests from the previous year. And on average over the year, between 4 and 5 guests used the shelter per night. When I wrote this, which was March 5th, the shelter was scheduled to be open for another 6 weeks. I do want to talk a little bit about the meeting. The Homelessness Committee is comprised of many local helping organizations. I think there's about 15 or 16 organizations who comprise the committee, and the meeting was very, very well attended. One of the things that we did discuss was a by name list. A by name list is where you actually are dealing with homelessness people by name and not just as a statistic. And what they're finding is that many of the people on the by name list are not moving off the list into housing. And so the discussion was, what are the barriers? And the barriers for people getting off that list include lack of skills and, interestingly enough, lack of documents, simply identification documents or income tax documents. So the next meeting is May 7th. I'm getting there, Councillor Mackey. Just the last one I want to talk about is the Fort Frances Power Corporation. I always like to mention employees. Fort Frances Power Corporation has an extensive habit of or record of educating their board members. And at this meeting, Scott Avis and Zach Kumans gave an operations update under 4 headings: distribution, substations, engineering, and training. And it was an excellent presentation, very, very informative, very interesting. Some complex topics were handled very skillfully by Scott and Zach. And so I just want to give a shout out to them for their knowledge and their excellent teaching skills. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the CEO of the Fort Frances Power Corporation, Jorg Rupenstein. We recently had a compliance audit, and we passed handily in every single category. It's pass, fail, you don't get a grade. So we passed every category, but the report actually mentioned Jorg by name for his excellent leadership and the good job that he's doing with the Power Corporation. I'll also mention that he's going to be sitting on the Electrical Distribution Association Northwest Board as our rep. And just one last thing, just to give you a heads up, there's going to be a power outage, and it's not caused by the Fort Frances Power Corporation. It's Hydro One is going to initiate a power outage not until September 15th. The nice thing is that whenever Hydro One does a power outage, because they need to work on the lines, Fort Frances Power Corporation will use that time to improve and do any maintenance work that we have to do so that there doesn't have to be another outage. And the last thing I want to say is that the DSAB, they've changed their name, I've mentioned that before, to the Rainy River District Services Board, was fortunate enough, after a lengthy search, to get a brand new CAO. And our CAO, who has roots here in Fort Frances, attended her first board meeting on March 21st. So I'm hoping that our search for the CAO can maybe get a bit of luck from that. So thank you for bearing with me. And that was the Reader's Digest version. And we'll move now to Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. The Fort Frances Public Library Board held its regular monthly meeting last Thursday afternoon, March 21st. Top on the agenda, the board approved transferring outstanding funds to the town related to budgetary purposes. The first amount stemmed from being over on the library's 2023 operating budget, totaling just over $87,000. That was largely the result of unforeseen circumstances involving the change in CEOs last year. The second amount, which came as a bit of a surprise to the board, totaled more than $106,000 in capital budget allocations over the past couple of years, including roughly $53,000 that for some reason was unknowingly not transferred out of the library reserves at the appropriate time back then. Also discussed was the amended 2024 operating budget that reflected additional savings of more than $14,000 from the initial budget that had been approved by the board, which largely was achieved by the board agreeing to reduce library operating hours from 55 to 50 hours a week, as well as opting not to fill a third student shelver position that had been vacant for the past several months. Additional savings totaling some $7,000 was achieved by cuts to other lines in the budget, including DVDs, events and activities, and advertising/public notices. As a result, as of April 1st, the new library hours for Mondays will be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and for Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is down from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. both days. Speaking of library hours, with Good Friday and Easter Monday already being statutory holidays, the library CEO has decided to close the library on Easter Saturday, which is this coming Saturday, March 30th, in order to give the staff a true long weekend break, as well as resulting in budgetary savings of 14 hours of staff wages. Also discussed was pursuing possible funding opportunities related to the library being a de facto youth center, as well as potential partnership/service usage agreements with surrounding First Nations communities. Finally, interim CAO Travis Robb also attended Thursday's meeting for a discussion on the need to update/revise the current memorandum of understanding between the town and library, which in Mr. Robb's words is offside in several areas. As I'm sure you've all noticed, this matter will come before council later in tonight's meeting as agenda item 9.2. With regards to the Rainy River District Municipal Association, I've already spoken about the creation of the 3 subcommittees to improve dialogue and communication with Riverside. The other big news is that the Township of Sioux Narrows Nestor Falls, which already is a member of the Kenora District Municipal Association, wishes to also join the RRDMA. This request was checked, and apparently there is no stipulation against a municipality being a member of 2 different associations, as long as they pay the respective levies. So in this end, the RRDMA constitution will have to be amended to allow this formal inclusion of Sioux Narrows Nestor Falls, which may be done at our general meeting in May, the date, time, and location of which are still to be determined. In the meantime, we're inviting the Sioux Narrows Nestor Falls to be guests at the next RRDMA executive meeting, which currently is scheduled for Wednesday, April 17th, which will be held at 6 p.m. in the council room in Chapel Township, not Alberton Township, so it's more central for all the municipalities there. And finally, as the town rep on the Make a Big Splash Steering Committee, I can report that after having been on hiatus over the winter months, the committee is now looking to meet again on Wednesday, April 3rd at 4 p.m. to discuss plans for a grand opening celebration for the new splash pad and the other upgrades to Legion Park. Thank you. That concludes my verbal.
Thank you, Councillor Behan. Councillor Brunetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've attended numerous meetings and things over the last month, but I'm only going to highlight on a couple. I attended the Northern Ontario Municipal Association Board of Directors meeting on February 28th. And we had a very lengthy agenda, but I'd just like to comment on a couple of the main ones. So as you're aware, I've been sort of the lead on the physician recruitment side. They've kind of changed my portfolio to include NOSM, so the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So there's been a lot of concern from various members of NOMA regarding the fact that they knew someone who maybe applied to the medical school but didn't get in, and they're wondering why when they have a high GPA, and so they wanted more information about the admissions process. So we did have representatives from NOSM as well as Confederation College come to our meeting, and they did a presentation, and it was very insightful. It was very good for all of our municipal reps at the table to understand the process and why perhaps, you know, the neighbor's daughter or son never got into med school. So they talked about many things. I mean, in terms of the admissions program, it's not just your GPA, but it's also the fact that you reside in Northern Ontario. So remember, this includes like Sudbury and East as well. So it's not just the Thunder Bay region, it's also all the way up to Sudbury. They do have a number of constraints in terms of their financial constraints. There is no inflationary adjustment in their funding from the province. There are tuition constraints, and as you know, the province has decided to cut the number of international students. So not only for those universities and colleges that you know of, but also for NOSM. So they were hoping to increase their enrollment by 20% with international students, and now that can't happen. The reason primarily for the reduction is because of the lack of housing. And the province felt that reducing the number of international students coming into the province would free up housing for other residents. But in the north, for example, Thunder Bay and Sudbury, that isn't quite an issue as it is in southern Ontario. So that's something else that they're, basically communicating to the province. They're hoping for some letters of advocacy from municipalities. They want the government to realize that Lakehead U and Confederation College serve Northwestern Ontario. So it's important to make that distinction because so many of their policies and decisions are based on Southern Ontario. So NOMA is working on some resolutions that I will bring to council to advocate on behalf of Lakehead U, NOSM, and Confederation College. NOSM as well is asking for municipalities to go to their health facilities and ask them to open up their doors for placements. The issue is quite a catch-22. Our doctors are already overworked. They don't have enough time to monitor student placement. But without those student placements, we won't get more doctors. So we are really asking municipalities to go to their healthcare facilities and advocate as well. They also talked about wrapping services around newcomers to their communities. So I know Councillor McTaggart's brought this up in the past where, we need to know when we have someone new in our community somehow and find ways to make them feel welcome. Also, there's concern that locum funding ends March 31st. So we're definitely concerned about that possibility. The Auditor General's report actually found that there's no government policy on funding hospitals. So there's just a lot of changes that need to happen at the Ministry of Health level. Okay, another issue that we talked about was the Northern Ontario Transportation Task Force. So NOMA has put forward a resolution around transportation. A lot of it is highway safety, but in addition to this, the issue of our, the withdrawal of Bearskin Airlines from our communities came up. And Roger Nesbitt, who's the CAO in Dryden, also spoke to it on behalf of his community. And after some discussion, it was agreed that Roger would contact our CAO, Travis, to discuss a resolution which you're going to see on the agenda tonight. So I really appreciate the support of council for moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernetta. That brings us to the consent agenda. Bear with me. There's 11 items and a lot of reading. So we'll start with item 8.2, which is approval of minutes. Recommendation reads that council approve as presented the regular council meeting minutes of the special council meeting for February 20th, 2024, the regular council meeting February 26th, 2024, the special council meeting March 4th, 2024, then special council meeting March 18th, 2024. Item 8.3 is boards and committee meeting minutes. Recommendation reads that the boards and committee meeting minutes be received as information. The Fort Frances Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation, December 6, 2023. The Committee of Adjustment, December 13th, 2023, and February 21st, 2024. The Sister Betty Kennedy Advisory Committee, January 10th, 2024, and the Police Services Board, January 19th, 2024. Item 8.4 deals with council remuneration. Recommendation reads that council receive this report, AR-24-0535, council remuneration and expenses for 2023 as information. Item 8.5 is the Drinking Water Systems Monthly Summary Report for February of 2024, and the recommendation reads that approval of report AR-24-0537 agree with the recommendation of administration that the February 2024 Water System Monthly Summary Report be accepted by council prior to being made available to the general public. 8.6, this is the 2024 Ontario Regulation Report 284/09 on budget matters. And the recommendation reads that Council receives report AR-23-0213, Ontario Regulation 284/09, Budget Matters Disclosure Report as presented for the 2024 operating budget. 8.7 is the POA audit statements for the year ending December 31st, 2023, and the recommendation reads that Council accept the provincial offenses Fort Frances Court Services Area Trust Fund audited financial statement as prepared by BDO Canada LLP for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. Item 8.8 is the Fort Frances Wastewater Treatment Facility January and February 2024 monthly reports. Recommendation reads that Council receive report AR-24-0536, Fort Frances Wastewater Treatment Facility January and February 2024 monthly reports as information. Item 8.9 is the award of tender 2024-05-02. That's the reconstruction of First Street East between Central Avenue and Mowat Avenue. And the recommendation reads that tender 2024-OF-02 be awarded to Makinga Contracting, 1876118 Ontario Limited, at a revised estimated cost of $2,043,172.29. That's option number 1 in your report, which includes the municipal portion of HST and a contingency allowance of $150,000, and that the valves and hydrants components of the tender, as well as the reallocation of the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund allocations for this project, be amended as detailed in option number 1. And that prior to construction start, an open house public meeting is scheduled to ensure all property owners abutting the construction project obtain firsthand knowledge of these projects and have the opportunity to ask any questions. The exact date of the meeting is unknown at the time of writing this report. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the contract documents on behalf of the corporation of the town of Fort Frances. Prior to reading the next one, I'm going to take a drink of water. Now, normally I don't read entire motions that have a whack of whereases in them, but this is a singularly important resolution. And I think that everyone, in particular the media, needs to hear this. And this is the normal motion on the loss of passenger carrier service at Fort Frances and Dryden Airport. So the recommendation reads that Council approval report AR-24-0544 agree with the recommendation of administration to forward the attached motion to NOMA for inclusion in their AGM April 24th, 2024. Whereas the Fort Frances Municipal Airport is one of only 2 airports in the District of Rainy River, and whereas the Fort Frances Municipal Airport and Dryden Regional Airport have recently been advised that Bearskin Airlines will be discontinuing scheduled service effective May 11th, 2024, and whereas the withdrawal of Bearskin Airlines has threatened the ongoing viability of Fort Frances and Dryden airports, and whereas the withdrawal of Bearskin Airline services and reductions in passenger movements through the COVID-19 pandemic has now made the Fort Frances Municipal Airport and the Dryden Regional Airport, and this is very important, ineligible for Federal Airport Capital Assistance Program, the ACAP funding, which was to be used to address specific capital needs, including runway rehabilitation. And whereas the Fort Frances Municipal Airport provides services to multiple other carriers, including Orange, MNRF, other private aircraft, and is a Canadian Customs port of entry, and whereas the Dryden Regional Airport provides services to multiple other federal there we go, too many pages. Multiple other federal carriers, including Orange, MNRF, and other private aircraft. And whereas airports of the Northwest have a huge impact on economic and tourist opportunities within the entire Rainy River and Kenora districts, and whereas the loss of the Fort Frances Municipal and/or Dryden Regional Airport would severely impact the municipality's ability to attract new industrial and commercial enterprises. And whereas the town of Fort Frances and the city of Dryden play critical roles in the emerging mining and green energy sectors of the northwest of Ontario. And whereas sustainable scheduled air transportation to these communities is key to the growth of operations in these key sectors for the future of Ontario, and whereas the airports of the Northwest also play a critical role in access to higher levels of emergent health care, and whereas the availability of scheduled flight services into these communities plays a critical role of bringing in locum physicians and specialists to provide critically needed medical care supports, and whereas the Town of Fort Frances, City of Dryden, and the Lumex Group are working collaboratively to source a new scheduled air passenger carrier to replace the service lost due to Bearskin Airlines withdrawal, and whereas a new scheduled air carrier will need time to establish themselves as a reliable and affordable carrier for these communities, likely at a financial loss for the carrier, and whereas the province of Ontario has played a significant role in supporting other transportation initiatives across the north, such as the Ontario Northland Bus Service and the Northlander passenger train. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the councils of the Town of Fort Frances and the City of Dryden urges the provincial government to provide financial support for a new carrier to provide reliable, affordable, convenient, scheduled passenger and freight air services to the Town of Fort Frances and the City of Dryden. And be it further resolved that the councils of the Town of Fort Frances and the City of Dryden urges the federal government to continue to provide Federal Airport Capital Assistance Program, that's the ACAP funding, to both municipalities regardless of annual scheduled passenger movements, and that ACAP funding is provided in this fashion until such a time that the new scheduled passenger services can be established and passenger movements return to pre-pandemic levels. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Provincial Minister of Transportation, the Federal Minister of Transport, the Minister of Northern Development, Minister of Health, Minister of Mines, regional MPs and MPPs, and the Northern Ontario Municipal Association, NOMA. 8.11. This is application to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation under the Rural Enhancement Stream for improvements to the Fort Frances Fire Hall, and the recommendation reads that Council approval of report AR-24-0546 will agree with the recommendation of administration to pass a resolution in support of the Town of Fort Frances Fire Hall upgrades and renovation project, and that the Town of Fort Frances commits to funding $122,125 of the total project costs, with the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund contributing $366,375 for a total project cost of $488,500, and the Town of Fort Frances commits to funding any cost overages. And finally, 8.12, this is a request for authorization to release certain records from the in-camera session of February 13th, 2024. And the recommendation reads, the Council received report AR-24-0550 relating to a request for authorization to release certain records from in-camera session February 13, 2024, and that Council waive confidentiality over generated records during the closed session pertaining to agenda item 15.5, Council conduct matter of February 13th, 2024, and that these records are to be made available to the Integrity Commissioner for use in the investigation and inclusion in the final report as the Integrity Commissioner deems appropriate. Councillors, would you like to pull any of those? Councillor McTaggart?
8.7 and 8.9, please.
Okay, 8.7, 8.9. Councillor Kircher?
8.12.
8.12. Any other items to pull? Just want to check. I think I had one. I'm going to pull 8.6. Okay, so starting with 8.6, which is the Ontario Regulation 284/05 Budget Matters Disclosure Report. I'm pulling it simply because I want to make sure that everybody understands what that is. So I talked to our wonderful treasurer, Dawn, and asked if she might explain that a little bit.
So basically, because of Ontario Regulation 284/9, we have to prepare this report in advance of the official passing of the 2024 budget. So since the motions were all passed at the last budget meeting, this is the time to do it. And then the next meeting, I will be preparing the presentation for the budget. So essentially, this just outlines what we don't account for within our budget, because we do budget on a cash basis, essentially. So if you look at the schedule, it does appear that, there's a huge surplus, but really it is a result of the money in and money out of the capital mostly, and the amortization piece.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. Going to 8.7, I think that was Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just on page 6 of the audited statement, I see in the expenditures remitted to municipalities about $74,000. Just what's the allocation of those funds by? What do we get out of it, and how is it split?
So through the chair, the split is we use the DSAB apportionment basis without the TUMO portion, if everybody understands what that means. Basically, the town of Fort Frances ends up, at least in 2023, with 40.59% of the amount. So it's $29,988.41. That is the town's split.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this one? Okay. Moving on to 8.9. Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship, again. I just need a little bit more explanation on the financial implications of option 1 and option 2 that were proposed for tonight.
Cody?
Yes, through the chair. So what we have before you for option 1, we've taken into consideration some of the budget overages that we found through our tendering process. So option 1, to capitalize on some of those cost overages, we see reducing the number of valves and hydrants that we're able to complete to fall within our actual budget allowance. Additionally, to pull additional funds from the OCIF provincial funding that we receive annually to cover the overages for the roads, grading, storm sewer works on First Street, as well as the Woodward storm sewer repair overages there as well. And that comes from the OCIF funding that we're looking to propose. So that would be for option 1. Now for option 2, once again, that reduces the number of allowable valves and hydrants for us to replace in our capital program this year. That cuts out the replacement of the Woodward storm sewer repair, and then reallocates a lesser amount of the OCIF funding to the grading, roads, and storm sewer component for the First Street East road segment.
Thank you, Cody. Anything else on this, Councillor McTaggart? I have a request from CAO Rob.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I can just quickly add to Cody's explanation, we do have, I'm going to try and use Don's accountant words. We do have a bit of a surplus of OCIF funding that we are carrying year to year. We're allowed to carry it for up to 2 years, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at the agreement. It's been a while since I looked at it, but it used to be 2 years. So we do have kind of a pot of OCIF money that we are not only taking our annual allocation, but taking some of that pot of money to fund some of these bigger road jobs. So we do have a pot of money there to pull more. It's just more than what we had outlined in our capital budget, which is why it's getting highlighted in this report.
Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you. Just for clarity then, we've got money sitting there that we're able to access for this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else on this one? Moving on to item 8.12, Councillor Kircher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe in the resolution, it should read councillor conduct matter. That was amended at the meeting.
You are correct.
And I would like to have a recorded vote.
Yes, that's certainly doable.
Thank you. That's all.
We can change that to councillor. Okay. Yeah. So, it's been, or the recommendation on the floor now reads that council approve the consent agenda as follows. Items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.8, 8.10, 8.11. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Bien. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Okay, going back to the ones that were pulled. Recommendation reads that council receives report AR-23-0213. This is the Ontario Regulation 284/09 budget matters disclosure report as presented for the 2024 operating budget. That's item 8.6. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Bien, Councillor Olson. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Item 8.7, recommendation the council accept the Provincial of Fuentes Fort Frances Court Services Area Trust Fund audited financial statement as prepared by BDO Canada LLP for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Item 8.9, recommendation is that the tender 224-05-02 be awarded to McKinda Contracting 1876115 Ontario Limited at a revised estimated cost of $2,043,172.29, which is option 1, which includes the municipal portion of HST and a contingency allowance of $150,000. The valves and hydrants component of the tender, as well as the reallocation of the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund allocations for this project be amended as detailed in option 1, that prior to construction start, an open house public meeting is scheduled to ensure all property owners abutting the construction project obtain first-hand knowledge of these projects and have the opportunity to ask questions. The exact date of the meeting is unknown at the time of writing this report, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the contract documents on behalf of the corporation of the town of Fort Frances. I got a thumbs up for that one. Mover and seconded, Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Olson. All in favor? And that's carried. No one is opposed. Okay, the last one. This is item 8.12. Recommendation is the council receive report AR-24-0550 relating to a request for authorization to release certain records from in-camera session of February 13, 2024, and that council waive confidentiality over the generated records during the closed session pertaining to council agenda item 15.5, councillor conduct matter of February 13, 2024, and that these records are made available to the Integrity Commissioner for use in the investigation and inclusion in the final report as the Integrity Commissioner deals appropriate. I need a mover and seconder before we vote. Councillor Bien, Councillor Bernetta, and a recorded vote has been requested.
Thank you, Your Worship. Recorded vote was called by Councillor Kircher. Councillor Beham?
Yay.
Councillor Bernetta?
Yay.
Councillor Kircher?
Yay.
Councillor Mackey?
Yay.
Councillor McTaggart?
Yay.
Councillor Olson?
Yay.
And Mayor Halakis.
Yay. Motion carried. No one was opposed. Okay. Item 9, we moved up a number. 9.1 is the external communications policy. Before I put this on the floor, I just want to thank our deputy clerk for her work on this policy. She did a wonderful job. And the recommendation reads that council review the external communications draft policy and direct that a bylaw be brought forward for adoption. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Bien. Any discussion? Councillor Brunetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one question. Under the heading Scope, which is number 2, it says, this policy applies to all employees and representatives of the town of Fort Frances who engage in external communication activities on behalf of the municipality. So who are representatives of the town, and does that include council?
Deputy Clerk?
Through the chair. So really in regards to employees, it could, I would say council is excluded from it.
As employees?
As employees, would be my thought. I can certainly write that out more clearly.
Okay, I would appreciate that because it, I know sometimes we're considered employees for the purpose of benefits and things like that, but I just want it to be clear that it applies to board or to council members as well. Because then I have a further question that if we are contacted by the media directly, and the policy states that, the mayor is the spokesperson, should we then be declining to speak on an issue? And is that really part of the process? It just feels like as municipally elected individuals, we have a duty to represent our community and constituents. So should we be hampered by a policy to not speak? I just don't want to censor our ability in terms of expressing our opinions on issues.
We'll get that clarified for you, Councillor Brunetta. You raised some good points. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. And Councillor Brunetta, we'll get that for you. Okay, 9.2. This is a memorandum of understanding between the corporation of the town of Fort Frances and the Fort Frances Public Library. Recommendation reads that council approve report AR-24-0526 and agree with the recommendation from administration to initiate the drafting and negotiation of a new memorandum of understanding MOU between the corporation of the town of Fort Frances and the Fort Frances Public Library Board. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Bien, Councillor Olson. Discussion? Councillor Bien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Having served on the library board for almost just over 5 years now, I will freely admit that I did not realize myself that the library staff were not town employees. I did not know that. I should have known that. I apologize for that. So I have probably contributed to the confusion of that. So that's on me. I think that's very important that the MOU is revised and upgraded because, as I've alluded to in my verbal update, Mr. Rob was at our meeting on Tuesday, and he did point out there is several areas of the MOU that are offside in his terms, and we have to make sure that's rectified because we want to make sure it works on the benefit of both parties and is successful moving forward because it's a great symbiotic relationship that exists between the library and the town, and I certainly want to see that continue to exist. So I'm in favor of making sure that it's done well and done properly going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand that they're two separate entities, and there's needs to be that delineation of responsibilities, but as outlined in the analysis option number 2, that this could lead to increased operational costs and reduce the ability to share information, and that concerns me that we're headed in that direction. I really think that we need to have a real wholesome discussion on this so that we can share some things and keep our costs in line.
We'll go to Alicia.
Through the chair. So option 2 is really about where we could go if we don't come to a new MOU. The MOU wouldn't lead to increased operational costs. The goal of the MOU is to clearly outline the relationship between the town and the Fort Frances Public Library Board. Option 2 is a separate option from the MOU, where we would completely separate from the Fort Frances Public Library, and that could lead to increased costs as they'd be responsible for their own HR, payroll, IT, which isn't what's recommended within the MOU, but would be negotiated with the Fort Frances Public Library Board, where we could clearly establish what that support and what that relationship looks like.
Thank you, Manager Dirksen. Any further discussion? I'll just weigh in with a little bit of history. I was on the council when this MAU came into existence. When we built the library, one of the things that happened was that all of the funds for the library were raised independent of the town. The town provided the land and a lot of services, of course. And that was a really good thing. And one of the things that administration and council at the time wanted to do was to help the library out. And so they wrote and signed off on this very generous MOU. And it is a very generous, helpful MOU to the library. But that was written in 2012. And so it's a long time from 2012 to 2024, and things change a little bit. So there definitely needs to be a look at the MOU in terms of tightening up the language and delineating the various roles of who works for who and which responsibilities. I don't think that, and I'm hoping that, the intent of the MOU isn't to financially disadvantage the library. And I'm getting agreement from administration. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, item 9.3 is one that I'm kind of excited about. We have an opportunity for some cultural awareness training. And the recommendation is that council approval of report AR-24-0548 will authorize the following members of council to attend the cultural awareness session on Friday, May 10th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And further, and council will have to decide this, that per diems are or are not paid to those in attendance. So first of all, do you know if you're interested in going? So I'm okay. We've got Councilor Renata. Bean. We've got Halikas. Any other councilors? Councilor McTaggart. Any further councilors? Okay, seeing none. And if you change your mind, we can fix that. Now, I'm going to make what might be an unpopular suggestion, but council always gets to decide. I'm just thinking that in view of the fact that we had a tough budget session and that we cut council, the council budget somewhat, maybe we want to forego the per diem for this one, but that's your decision. Do you want to give me your opinion, Councilor Bean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've certainly been thinking about this myself since the agenda came out. I guess my gut reaction is that we want to make sure that all councilors have an opportunity to attend training, especially all-day training that's outside of evening hours, out of town particularly. And I just want to think that I don't want to make sure that a councilor can't attend because they're working, and so a per diem might be allowed them to get some money to cover their absence from work in that particular day. So I certainly want to make sure that by not having per diem that we're keeping people from attending and preventing people from attending. My thought is that per diems are, in a sense, voluntary in that I think per diem should be allowed, but then it's up to the individual councilor whether or not to decide to submit it or not. So I'd rather see it left that way rather than say no in case somebody who works full-time now has an opportunity to attend if the per diem is allowed. Thank you.
Councilor Bean, you're exhibiting the wisdom of Solomon. We actually just had this case at the DSAB, and that's the same conclusion that the DSAB board came to, that per diem, it's up to councilors whether they put it in or not. So if you don't have to put it in if you feel you want to save some money. So I think what I'm hearing then is that we will pay per diems for those councilors who need or request them. So I need a mover and seconder for this. Councillor Behan, Councillor Mackey. Any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? It's carried, no one is opposed. Okay, item 10, Community Services Division reports. Oh, I've lost my 9.1. Where are we? Yep. How many pages? Nine. Yeah, we approved it. I think we'll just go with that and then, yeah. But
I failed.
yeah, no. And this is why you're here. Yes, very fast. I'm on a roll. I always thank there's a reason why we have two prominent members of administration flanking the mayor, because it's they whisper in his ear when they think that he might be going astray. Okay, so back to 10. This is the user fee bylaw. And the recommendation reads that council receive the information outlined in report AR-24-0539 and direct administration to bring an updated 2024 user fee bylaw to council for approval. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Olson. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? It's carried, nobody is opposed. Okay, item 11, Planning and Development Division reports, there are none. Item 12, Operations and Facility Division reports, 12.1. Recommendation reads, the council approval report AR-24-0530 agree with the recommendation of the administration that council, the water system owner, accepts the 2023 Schedule 22 annual summary report and that a separate resolution be prepared, that the 2023 MECP annual drinking water inspection report of the town's water system be reviewed and accepted by council, and that at this time, the staff of the drinking water system should be acknowledged for all of their effort and hard work to ensure that all consumers connected to the town's water system received outstanding water. So I'm going to just take a moment to do that. And I do want to say that in report after report after report, we get very, very high marks on the quality of our water, and that is due to the dedication and knowledge and hard work of those who operate our plant. So at this time, I want to acknowledge the efforts and hard work of the following staff members during this period. Jeff Pierce, who's the interim environmental superintendent. Greg Wiedenhoff, who's the water treatment operator, class 3. He's an overall responsible operator. Brian Patterson, who's the water treatment operator, class 1, and he's the water treatment operator in charge. Colin Angus, who's a water treatment operator, class 1. Eric Gustafson, who's a water distribution operator, class 2. Joel Nicolay, who's a water distribution operator, class 2. George Halverson, who's a water distributor operator in training, and Justin Whitburn, who's a water distribution operator in training. So these staff work daily to ensure that all consumers connected to the town's drinking water system receive safe and outstanding potable water at all times. And we thank and salute them. So I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor McTaggart and Councillor Olson. Any discussion? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Okay, that brings us to bylaws. 13.1. Recommendation reads that the following bylaws be introduced and read, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with a corporate seal and become law forthwith. Bylaw 21-14M being a bylaw to amend bylaw 21-14 being a bylaw for the regulation of traffic on the highways. That's Lions Park and Spray Park and Lily Avenue. Bylaw 17-24 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of the collective agreement between CUPE Local 65 and the Corporation of the Town of Fort Francis. Bylaw 18-24 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Fort Francis Fire Department and the District of Rainy River Services Board, the paramedic services. And finally, bylaw 19-24 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Makinga Contracting, that's 1876118 Ontario Limited, RFT 2024-05-02, reconstruction of First Street East between Central Avenue and Mode Avenue. A mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Olson, Councillor Behan. Any discussion? Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm just curious for bylaw 1724. It's been 4 years since the last collective agreement was passed, and my memory maybe is not as good as it used to be. Is it generally that long between when the agreement is signed or agreed to and then when the bylaw is passed? I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
CEO Rob.
Thank you through the chair. No, it typically is not. However, the creation of that document lands in the hands of the union. So we provided them signed MOU. We went back and forth with some corrections, but ultimately the creation of that document was with them, and this is when we received it. So,
any further discussion? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Item 14 is notice of motion. There are none. Item number 15 is closed session. So council is going to proceed into closed session with your permission at 7:17 once we pass this. Resolution reads that council now meet in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to 1. 833 Portage Avenue, which is a declaration of surplus and direction to dispose. 239.C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And 2, Moffat Family Fund. This comes under 239-2B, which are personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And finally, 3, these are employee relations, comes under 239-2B, again, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. So, mover and seconder, Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Behan. Any discussion on this? Yes.
Mayor, I have a perceived conflict for 1 and 3, so I will not go in camera and I'll wait for the Ryzen report.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kircher. We'll let Councillor Kircher, let the record show that Councillor Kircher declared a conflict on 1 and 3. Any other discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? And that's carried. No one was opposed. Okay. Councillor Kircher, could I get you to just state the general nature of your conflict, please?
Perceived conflict?
Yes. For number 1?
For number 1, could be the history of my business, that sort of thing.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
So for those of you at home, we are going in camera, and when we return into public session, we'll discuss what we can of what we did in camera. Thank you. Okay, we're back in open session. In closed session, we looked at a real estate matter, the Moffat Family Fund, and employee relations. We have resolutions for the first 2. So on the matter of 833 Portage Avenue, recommendation coming out of closed session reads that council approved report number AR-24-0533 and further declares the municipally owned 833 Portage Avenue property as surplus, and that the property be listed with real estate agent Miranda Veach of Century 21 for disposition, and that the necessary access easement be registered on title in favor of the town as a condition of sale, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary future agreement of purchase and sale on behalf of the corporation. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Olson, Councillor Bernetta. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
will abstain.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? And that motion carries with one abstention. Okay, then on the Moffett Family Fund, the recommendation coming out of the closed session reads that with respect to agenda item 15.3 from the closed session, council approve the endorsement of the 11 recipients named herein for recommendation to the Winnipeg Foundation for the purpose of allocating their respective portions of $103,750 in grant funding for the year 2024 as recommended by the Moffett Family Fund ad hoc committee. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Mackey, Councillor McTaggart. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. On the employee relations matter, instruction was given that the matter proceed as directed. We also have closed meeting minutes. And the recommendation reads that council approve the closed meeting minutes of February 20th and February 26, 2024 as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Behan. Any discussion on these minutes? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Okay, this brings us then to the confirmatory bylaw. Recommendation that bylaw 20-24 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the town of Fort Frances be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with a corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Behan, Councillor Olson. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, no one is opposed. And finally, recommendation that having reached the hour of 7:57, that this meeting of the council of the town of Fort Frances be now closed. Mover and seconder, Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Olson, Councillor Mackey, McOlson. All in favor? Carried. This meeting is now closed. Wow. Got a lot of work done, councilors. Thank you so much.